In 2012, the British newspaper The Observer ran a peculiar contest. They pitted 3 teams against each other to pick the best stocks over a single year. They gave £5,000 each to a group of professional investment managers, a class of schoolchildren, and a cat named Orlando, whose investment strategy involved swatting a toy mouse onto a grid of numbers. This chart shows the final results. While the kids lost money, the professionals managed a modest profit, but Orlando the cat ended the year with over £5,500. He didn't just win, he decisively outperformed the experts. Humans like to think of ourselves as the undisputed winners of evolution because of our massive, complex brains. We assume that more brain power leads to better outcomes. But Orlando's victory makes a point. If a cat's random play can beat our sophisticated analysis, our intelligence might not be the flawless advantage we imagine. If we judge success by how well we ensure our own comfort and future survival, we might actually be looking at a very different scoreboard. For roughly 200,000 years, humans survived using learned associations, a type of intelligence we share with most of the animal kingdom. If a dog hears a bear walking through the forest, it associates that sound with danger. It's a simple, effective way to stay alive that served us just fine for millennia. Then, around 44,000 years ago, a cognitive shift occurred. We started asking why. These cave paintings, featuring half-human and half-animal figures, show evidence of humans seeking abstract meaning. We were no longer content to see the stars. We needed to know what moved them. This drive to understand causes gave birth to science, medicine, and engineering, allowing us to build massive structures like the Roman aqueducts. But this same imagination can lead to dead ends. Our brains became filled with dead facts and absurd causal logic. It's the same cognitive impulse that led people in medieval Wales to believe pressing the butt of a live chicken against a snakebite was an effective cure. Crossing into the realm of why questions didn't just give us science, it created a mind that constantly seeks connections and meaning, even when those connections are useless or entirely imaginary. Consider the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. He was a specialist in these why questions, spending his life probing existential queries about the meaning of life and the nature of morality. But the older Nietzsche got, the more these questions seemed to take a toll. His awareness of his own mortality and the search for meaning eventually led him into a mental asylum, where he spent his final years in a catatonic state. Nietzsche himself envied cows in the field, who were completely unbothered by existential dread. A narwhal, for example, will never experience a life-threatening existential crisis because it simply lacks the cognitive ability to contemplate its own mortality. Beyond personal despair, we are the only species that uses our complex ideas to justify harming one another on a massive scale. After Nietzsche died, his sister promoted his work to provide a philosophical justification for the genocidal Nazi agenda, even though Nietzsche himself had written about how he despised anti-Semitism. We see this pattern again in the 19th century, when physicians like Samuel Morton used the shape of human skulls to argue for a hierarchy of intelligence. This bogus science was used to provide a rational justification for the horrors of slavery. Human intelligence is unique in its ability to manufacture both psychological misery and the grand ideas used to justify systemic cruelty. Our cognitive evolution also led to a very specific talent: bullshitting. While animals can be deceptive, only humans are capable of this particular form of communication. There is a technical difference between lying and bullshitting. A liar cares about the truth enough to try and hide it to change your behavior. A bullshitter, however, doesn't care about accuracy at all. They only care about saying something that sounds believable enough to serve their interests. This chart highlights a study of over 100 corporate employees. It found that those who ranked lowest in honesty and humility were often held in high esteem as being politically skilled. They were frequently seen as more competent than their more honest colleagues. This suggests that in human social structures, the ability to sound convincing is often more rewarded than being accurate. It appears that our evolution has favored the ability to navigate social hierarchies through deception, prioritizing influence over objective truth. To see the limits of our intelligence, we can look at the common bedbug. These insects are highly adapted to study us. They track our heat and carbon dioxide to know exactly when we are asleep, and they've learned to hide in places like Bibles or the old exoskeletons of their dead to avoid detection. In the 20th century, we tried to outsmart them using DDT, an industrial-strength pesticide. We sprayed it nationwide to eradicate the pest. The plan backfired. A small number of bedbugs survived, evolved immunity, and are now more difficult to kill than ever. Meanwhile, the DDT washed into our water and food supplies, settling in human tissue, where it continues to be passed to new generations, increasing risks for obesity and cancer. This is an example of prognostic myopia. Our minds evolved to focus on immediate concerns, ill-suited for the long-term effects. We fixate on the immediate solution, killing bugs today, while remaining blind to the toxic fallout that affects the planet for decades. Our brains are wired to solve the problem in front of us, but that same focus often prevents us from seeing the self-inflicted disasters we are creating for the future. This short-sightedness is currently playing out on a global scale. We see it in the decision to keep using fossil fuels and pumping carbon into the atmosphere to satisfy short-term shareholder profits, despite the long-term warnings. The statistical consequences are stark. A child born today is 5 times more likely to die in a global extinction event than a car crash. Yet, because we don't feel an immediate danger, we continue making short-term decisions that increase our chances of extinction. Contrast this with the animal kingdom. A well-cared-for chicken has a nice barn, plenty of food, and social space. On any given day, that chicken is arguably experiencing more pleasure and living more sustainably than the average human. If we want to secure our future, we have to stop treating human intelligence as a guaranteed success. We must recognize our own lethal short-sightedness and begin making decisions that look beyond the immediate moment.